Hey there, welcome to saas.unbound podcast. I'm your host, Nadeina, how to grow with SaaS Group, serial acquirer buying wonderful SaaS businesses to take them to the next level. And here I chat with inspiring founders and experts to get an inside scoop on how they made their business success. So today with me is Bethany, co-founder and CEO at Sendspark, the #1 platform for video selling. And I really want to dig in deeper what it is and how you do it. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anna. Great to be here.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll start with your background. How did you get to do what you're doing?
So before Sendspark, both my co-founder and I were working at two other startups together. So my role was always marketing automation, lead generation, which is kind of how I fell into the personalized video space because we were trying to send out lots of personalized videos to acquire new customers. And it just seemed like there was a gap in the market. Like, how come there's so many tools to personalize email at scale, but nothing like that for video, even though video gets 2-3 times more responses? So we built Sendspark to let people in sales and marketing really build a process around video so you can use it in your customer acquisition.
Okay, that's cool. So how does it work? Walk me through the process. What should I do, or what should I be doing so that Sendspark makes sense for me?
Yeah. So with Sendspark, you can record videos of yourself or your screen or yourself over your screen, which there's a lot of other platforms that are going to help you do that. Though I would say just sending messages, like sending videos to customers is super helpful and important. And then what's really unique about Sendspark is, let's say that you're going to send nearly an identical video to like 10 prospective customers and you don't want to record it 10 times. You can record one video and instead of actually saying like, hi, Anna, hi, Bethany, hi, first name, you record that saying, hi, watermelon. And then you just indicate that that is going to be, we call it a dynamic video. So you toggle on the button that says to make it a dynamic video. And then what you can do is instead of recording new videos, you just upload contacts and we'll generate personalized versions of the video for everyone you want to reach out to that, clone your voice and say, hi, first name in your own voice. You can also show their website or dynamic content in the video, just to make it like super relevant, super personalized. And then we have all types of integrations. You could send it out in like, Instantly, Smartlead, HubSpot, whatever email platform you use.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, I can totally see how that could be really helpful for so many people. So how did you find the first people, the first customers to use it?
Yeah, the first customers were just like I'm gonna say friends, we like coerced into it, since both my co-founder and I had been working together, we were at a couple of different companies. We were in San Antonio, which is a really intimate like tech community because doesn't have as many companies as like Austin or San Francisco. So when we were just starting out, we just told our friends at other companies who were in sales and marketing and similar roles that we knew, we're like, hey, we're going to build this. Would you use it? And they're like, sure. And then we're like, all right, we built it. Will you please use it? And they're like, does it work? We're like, we're about to find out. Let's see. So, we just, for the first like 10, it was really just people in network. And I'm saying that like jokingly, but they're also the people we're building the problem for, right? So like we knew when we started, like this is solving a problem for us. It'll solve problems for friends at similar stage companies who are trying to connect with customers and, may as well just go. This was like pre-COVID, to be honest. So people were working in person. So we just show up at their office and be like, hey, we're here. I'm sure we brought like coffee or something. We're like, we're here. We have something for you. Open your computer and you're going to send out some videos.
That's pretty cool. So I want to go back to, going to people and telling them that we're going to build a product. So you went with, the vision first, got kind of validated the idea that people are willing to pay. And I always want to ask the question, like, how many of those people that said that they were willing to pay actually paid?
Oh, not a lot of them. I think, I think that there's a lot of people who like, I warn founders about this all the time. Like, there's so many people when you're starting out and you're like, hey, I'm going to build this. Would you use it? And you're so sweet, you're so excited. And they're like, they want to support you. And then, of course, yeah, what a great idea. And then as soon as you ask for money, they're like, oh, I need to check with my boss, you know? So, I mean, definitely people did. And our pricing, we didn't want to do it free. Like, we just had a lot of like or we had a lot of advice from other people that were like, yeah, you make it free, you get the wrong customer type. Like, it's a mess, like, definitely charge. But we were charging $15. So it was kind of nice to have a little bit of friction, but it wasn't like we were charging thousands of dollars. It's enough that, you know, you would pay that to like test or, you know, if you thought it might work, you're down to risk $15 to test it out.
Right. So you weren't like coming up to people with some kind of a contract and say, hey, pay now. And then we're going to build that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, put it on cart, you know, and then also what was nice about doing it that way. And I'm always surprised when I see founders that do the opposite, though I'm sure they grow way faster than we do, is when you have month-to-month payments, someone's going to pay $15 to test for sure, to be nice, but they'll cancel if it doesn't work. And so you get that feedback instantly. And then it kind of sucks. Like, cancellations are not fun, but early on, I think it's so important. And we always say, someone said this and we like stole it, but churning is learning. So we always have supported month-to-month payments. You know, anyone can sign up, but if they cancel, they have to provide reasons. And that's helped us make the product a lot better over time because we're just getting that really fast feedback and we can act on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're doing a podcast with Jason Cohen from WP Engine, and he said something that I found really funny, but also kind of true. People are not trained to tell you that you suck, so there will be a lot of people that kind of validate your idea, but then unless they're paying, obviously, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I remember reading, I think this book's popular, but the Mom Test, where it like tells you how to ask questions in a very objective way so that people give you an honest answer without like crushing your dream. So it's like, oh, you know, you've had this problem before. Have you ever searched for a way to solve it? Okay, you didn't. I guess it's not really a problem then. Like, you know, and I remember we read that book. I don't remember the details now because it was like a couple years ago, but I remember reading the book and having the questions and doing discovery. And honestly, it was so helpful because he's right. Like, people are not trained and they just want to be nice. And no one wants to tell you that your idea is bad and then be like proven wrong and be the one that wasn't supportive. Like, these are people that, you know, they're excited for you to do something new and cool.
Absolutely. So how did you determine like who you were selling to? Because you said your background is in marketing, and I guess you wanted to solve a bit of a different problem than than you're solving right now. So were there any surprises with your ICP and with people who eventually use the product now?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because my background's marketing, but really a big function of that is sales automation. And so that's who we sell to now because we're taking something that a sales rep would normally do manually, like record 10, 20 Loom or Vidyard videos, and then we're helping automate the process. And so the question is, who's buying that? Is it the salesperson that doesn't want to sit there and record videos? Is it the manager that wants to like give a better system, a better process to the team, be able to run proper tests? Or is it like marketing who's sending out the emails and automating a lot of the sales process? And so I would just say we sell to all three and also do a little bit less targeting by the job title, because it is hard to know like who's really running, like who runs outbound email at a company. It's different at every company. And so we target less based on like job criteria that you can search in Apollo and more based on actions people take that indicate that they're the right buyer. So like who bought Clay for their company? Like they're probably the ones that are going to use Sendspark. Or who's the one setting up HubSpot? Again, they're the ones that could be our Sendspark customers. So we try to figure out who our ICP is for targeting based more on signals and actions than just the criteria, because we never really nailed it.
Okay. All right. So it's good that you mentioned that you started before COVID, and I would assume that it was kind of a good timing to start because the demand for SaaS businesses, for SaaS tools was going crazy. So then you raised funding. And you have this, also investor expectations and, working on the return on investment and everything. So how do you balance this? Because you said there were, of course, companies that are probably growing faster than you. How do you balance the expectations from, the market kind of pulling you to grow bigger and faster and investor expectations, but also your own way of growing and a bit of a more sustainable path?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, one thing I'll mention about our timing starting just a few months before COVID really is COVID really increased market demand for video. Like when we started, like Loom was pink. Like we actually had purple, the color before Loom. Like it was, no one really heard of it. People were using Vidyard, but it wasn't nearly as popular. Like video was still very, very early. And then with COVID, there was a much larger rise in the needs of video, like the need to use video because everyone's working from home, the world changed. So that helped in some ways, but the trade-off is it really increased competition. There were a lot of other startups that came out at the same time. And so what we did is we just really planted deep in our niche. Before, when we started, we were more like, yeah, anything video at the company, that could be us. But once Loom grew so fast, we had to be like, how do we make sure you're going to be able to pay for Sendspark and Loom? Because I don't think we're going to necessarily rip out a product that has so much stickiness. So it forced us to go really deep on personalization at scale, which was ultimately great because that's what we wanted to do anyway. And then we could only focus on the stuff, the superpowers for sales. Like we could build all in that. And then that really helped us. And that's where we found our voice. And then in terms of balancing like investor expectations, we just honestly picked investors that aligned with us from the beginning. So we've never been a grow at all cost company. We work with Active Capital in San Antonio. We've partnered with a bunch of great investors since then as well, but we've always kind of been aligned if this is how we want to grow. One of our goals is to not run out of money, which is different than some people who are like, hey, I'm going to grow really fast and like, you know, we're either going to billion or bust. And that's like the option. We've grown a lot slower in the beginning to make sure that we're building a sustainable company with like a good business model, good customer base, going at things in the right order. And then in the last like 6 months, we've really been able to ramp it up because we had such a good base. So, you know, that's just about finding partners that are supportive of that and not like, no, you need to grow faster, even if it's riskier.
Right. So you just said that the last 6 months were actually good for you, and not a lot of companies can say that. So how, like, what were the processes that you set up to make sure that during this kind of turbulent times, you still have, you know, the runway and you still have something to go on with?
I mean, when it comes to Runway, the most important thing is just not spending all your money. You know, like there's two things you can do. You can either add revenue or you can reduce costs. And even when we raise money, like we try to be really like careful about how we spent it so that we wouldn't run out. But the thing is, the faster you grow, like then the more you can afford to spend. So basically, I'll rewind to like 2 years ago. We weren't growing that fast. We were like building things out. We were working with customers, which is kind of like, okay, we had customers. They have a lot of feedback. We want to build the feedback. We're just going slow. Like we're trying to not burn through our money. All the hires on our team, it was like software development, one customer success person. We didn't hire even for customer support till last May. So it was like a very, very lean team, mostly just building out the product. And then finally we got to the spot where like, okay, like it just felt different. We're like, I feel like now we're talking to customers and they're not saying, one more thing. They're like, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I always ask that then of sales calls. I'm like, is this what you expected when you scheduled the call? And it got to a point where everyone was saying, this is so much better. And so we're like, all right, we're onto something, like, let's ramp it up. And so we started, you know, carefully, like hiring people fractionally, but like spending more money. And, you know, as we're spending more, we're growing faster. So we're like, okay, we can afford to spend more. We can afford to spend more. We can afford to spend more. So I'm always looking at like Runway and then also the burn from 1 month versus the growth in that month. So as long as we're able to spend money, but like, you know, at least since we do have funding, like we can afford to not just be profitable, we can grow faster than that. But as long as like the ratio of spend to customer acquisition is good, then we can keep ramping it up and just lean into what's working.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to come back to the beginning for just a second, because I think you also have quite an interesting story of, you know, the founding team. And I think there wasn't actually a developer on the team when you started this, and you kind of started with a vision, and, you know, you're both marketers and you know the story better. But yeah, what is the situation?
Yeah, so both my co-founder and I worked at tech companies, so we're like fairly technical, but he's a designer and I'm like a marketer by background. And so that made it like I mean definitely like an interesting story in the beginning. We found our current CTO joined us about a year in. So he's on it like at this point, he's been on the team for like 4 years. So like he's great, he's solid. But early on it was tough because it kind of puts you in a position. There's a chicken and egg problem at the beginning of startups. You're like, okay, well, I need to grow. That's the goal. Like if I want to raise money to grow, like if I want to raise money, I need growth. But if I need growth, I need customers. If I have customers, it's because there's a product. And so it's like, how do you start that? And I call it like a little wiggle. So we had a friend who like helped us out, build a prototype to get like the earliest users on, so we could show investors like, yeah, we have some interest. And then we could use investors to raise some money, hire more developers, get more customers, and then that cycle kind of continued. So early on, it was like, a lot of it, a little this, a little that, small checks. Like we raised our first check was, I'm saying it's small by like VC terms. It was huge for us at the time, like 100,000. We did 500 startups, and then that helped. And every kind of little bit we got would help us get to the next milestone. So the first like year and a half, maybe were pretty tough like that. And then, we found our CTO and now we have an amazing dev team and a pretty good process going.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, another thing that I just want to bring up, because you said that you only hired your customer support person just very recently, and obviously I went to the website and checked out like what you're talking about, and it's all the badges from G2, and I think you have a best relationship in 2023. So I'm really interested in that one. So how do you communicate with your customers, and how do you ensure that like long-term relationship and customer satisfaction, and maybe not even have a customer support person on the team yet?
Yeah, I said last May. I forgot it's currently like August, so I meant like a year ago. By the way, so it wasn't like this year. Yeah, how we communicate with our customers, we send a lot of videos, I'm going to be honest. So people feel very well connected. So even though we're reaching out, we have like over 50,000 users in our system, but like I'm still sending out personalized videos and our product updates. And so people, when I talk to them, they're like, I feel like I already know you. So that's a pitch for Sendspark for sure, because it makes a huge difference to support people at scale. It's like the mass video emails, one-on-one, like when people are reaching out, we're always sending little screen recordings of how to do things. And we try to just be really responsive. If people reach out, they get a response right away. And actually, like having a support person is huge, because it was a lot for me to be like typing in responses all the time. But I think early on, it definitely helped us. People love getting support from like the founders and the CTO. And, before you have a support person, it's the founders and everyone on the team doing support. So I think that was probably helpful in the beginning, that people had such a direct line to us. And even now, I send out most of the marketing emails from me, and I'll respond to every response I get. So we try. I mean, customers are our lifeblood. They're the ones paying for the product. They're the ones referring the product. They're the ones giving us insight, telling us what they want to be built that's going to help us, innovate. So we really prioritize customer experience and try to do that at scale as much as possible, but we're also not afraid to do the small personalized things when it makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, when we met like 10 minutes ago, I also thought, oh, okay, well, you seem like the same person as I know from LinkedIn. And before I reached out for the podcast, I was creeping around everything that you're doing and like looking at videos and trying to like get to know the personality a little bit to see that it's a fit. But what I'm saying basically is that you're growing your your founder brand on LinkedIn a lot, and this is kind of a topic that we're discussing here quite often on the podcast, how to do it, like why to start it, because to this day, like sometimes I have to drag people by the hair to the podcast and say, hey, you know what, like you got what it takes to do founder-led sales. And I think that could be your start. And when I see them later go to other podcasts, I'm like, oh, that's so great. Like you're actually doing that. And maybe you see the value. So what value do you see in building your brand, and how does it change, again, maybe the perception of your customers about the product and the company and the culture that you're building?
Yeah. So posting on LinkedIn is definitely interesting. It's been really helpful to us as I ramped it up. But the funny thing is I did not want to do it either. Because like, one, it's scary to post. You're like waiting to get ripped apart. And two, like I'm just busy. Like there's so many things that are like fires all the time. So it's hard to be like, oh, let me just take some time and share my thoughts. But luckily we started working with, he's not on the team, but his name's Ben Wright. He started with us as an advisor. And he was like, you need to post on LinkedIn. I'm like, I'm busy. I don't want to. He's like, well, it's fine. Just give me your login credentials and I'll do it for you. And so I'm like, no. I don't want you posting for me. That's worse than posting myself. So with that threat, I was like, fine, I'll just post like 3 times a week. And then like, I finally like, kind of got into a rhythm of it. And now I really appreciate it and actually enjoy it. It's like cathartic in a way because I'll share my reflections. So I would tell anyone who's thinking about posting but doesn't want to just do it or have that threat, I guess. And then eventually it becomes really fun because you feel more connected to people. And the point of it is, I mean, sometimes I just post random things, but the point is really to share the why behind why I'm building Sendspark. And then to like hope that resonates with people. And so as a founder, that's really what you should be doing is like, you're so lost in the day-to-day, but at the end, the most important thing is to be able to say like, hey, this is why I'm building this, or like, this is what we built recently, or this is a way to use the product, a way we're helping people. And like, you should be saying that all the time. And I think a lot of the LinkedIn content I post, you know, I could probably put it in some onboarding materials to help new customers get started. We added some of the LinkedIn posts to our email automation to help users get started with just like tutorials. And then so they can see the comments too, because it's cool when I post, hey, this is a cool way you can use the product. And then a bunch of people chime in like, oh yeah, we're using that and it's working. You know, you get that validation more than you would on a blog post. So I think it's been really helpful and made it ultimately worth it. But I definitely, I was nervous as well getting started.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, imposter syndrome is a real thing, but I guess just the return on the time investment when you're posting, when you're really talking about what you're doing is totally worth it. But that said, I also found a bunch of podcasts with you and listened to some of them. So on one, and I found that would be the thing that we really need to discuss here, because we at saas Group love PLG companies, and PLG has been a big hype over the last years. And what you said there was that I guess it went like one mistake that we did was to go PLG early on. So could you elaborate what you meant and what you would do differently?
Yeah. Okay. The reason why I think that we went PLG too soon early on, it was a mistake, and a mistake that I would caution others to avoid is when you're starting out a company, you have to do things in the right order. Like you have to figure out who your customer is, what your product does at the current moment, because it's probably a fraction of what you want it to do, and how you're actually helping people. And like that's how you sell and have a good customer experience. You're doing something for a customer, making their life better. And that takes a little bit of time to figure out because you just got to make sure all the pieces line up. That said, when you're starting out, people are going to give you all this advice for ways to grow, but it might not actually make sense because if you haven't figured out the core of who your customer is, like what your product does, how you help them, and then you're growing, like what are you growing? You're kind of like growing, getting the wrong people, your product's not really helping them, like things are a little misaligned. And so I think that startups are always told to add these growth loops into your product so early, and it can be disastrous. And like, for example, free plans seem like a great way to grow. And often people will say like, oh, you should have a free plan and then like convert those free people to paid. But really you want to do the opposite. You want to find who are your paid customers and what is the best way to get more of them. And maybe that is a free plan. I'm not saying it's not. It's great for a ton of companies. But if you're starting free to paid, you're basically starting from a pool of noise and then trying to find like diamonds in it. And that's way harder than identifying who are your diamonds and what's the best way to get a hold of them. And it could be a free plan. It could also be like marketing. Like it could be social, it could be ads, it could be in-person events. Like there could be a lot of ways to reach your customers it could be affiliates. Like it could be so many different things. But if you just start with a mindset of, oh, everyone says free growth loops, I should do it, it can be very misleading, and it can like spiral negatively, where you're like, oh, we get so many free customers, and our free customers bring more free customers, and they bring more, and you're like, wait, no one's paying. Like you don't want free. So that's my advice is really just work backwards. Start with your paid customers. Don't do free for months after people are telling you to do free, until you're like, I know who our paid customers are, and free is the best way to get more of them. And if you don't really believe that, you shouldn't do free.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, another question that I really wanted to throw in is, because you said people are super happy about the product and they're actually it exceeds their expectations. So what is the most loved feature, and how do you get to build something new? Is it the customers that pull you in a certain direction, or is it mostly just your vision of the product from the beginning?
Well, definitely our most loved feature is the dynamic video feature. And the people who love it the most are people that have used our competitors. And they've like spent time recording a video. And they do it because they see the value in video. They're getting good responses, but it just takes so much time, and it's really hard to record a lot of videos. Like try just repeating yourself for 30 minutes or an hour. It's like mentally exhausting. And so the people who see like, oh, I can take one video that's really good and scale it out, like that's really cool. But I think it's like we got there the same way that anyone get there. Like there is part of it that's the original video vision, like we're like, how do we scale video? But so much has just changed since we started the product. It's been 5 years since we started the company. And so it's really been an evolution with our customers, where we're watching them. Like we had the normal video messaging before we had the dynamic video messaging, and we watched them record videos and then kind of get burned out. We saw like our top users who'd record 150 videos 1 week, then go 3 weeks without like doing anything, and then come back way smaller. And we're like, this isn't sustainable. People don't love it. People are like, oh, it's work, but it works. But that's not how you want people to think your product. So I think we just would watch people use it and kind of ask what would make it better, and then also just come up with our own observations based on what we're seeing. Like, okay, if you're saying video works, but you don't want to do it, how do we make you want to use the platform? Let's add some AI, let's add some automation, let's make it fun, make sure you're able to see the results you're getting. And so it's really been an evolution, working closely with our customers and our like support team and just the people that are close to them.
Yeah, that's great. So what makes a good video? What makes a video that sells? Like what works for you? Because you do lots of them.
A good video is all about relevance. Like it's nice, we can use AI and add their first name. It's nice to have the personalization, but at the end of the day, what matters more than anything is it to the point and relevant, and you're showing someone the value that you can offer them. The video works really well in the sales process because you're able to show things in a way that makes sense to your customers. You're able to show like, hey, you could have this, this feature to use day to day, and you're showing like your product in action. Or if you're selling like services, you can show a pain point like, hey, check your website's not responsive, or, oh, look, your SEO report pulled back something negative. We can help you with that. You're able to like really just show what you're doing right away. But I think where people make a big mistake is they spend a lot of time with like personalization that's not relevant, like, and talk for a little bit about stuff that doesn't matter, or they spend a long time introducing themselves. By then the person's like, all right, I don't care. But like a good video, you just get right to the point, you share why you can help, you lay out the next steps, like to book a meeting or have someone sign up, and you just communicate clear, concisely, visually, and in a good way.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I totally support that. All right. So 2 questions that we always ask here, and I'm curious what you will have to say here. First one is, what's so far the biggest win and the biggest failure? Maybe not a failure. Hopefully there weren't anything to like really remember, but maybe a learning or a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. So biggest like failure learning, I would say this is just the first one that comes to mind. When we were, I'd say this happened like a year ago. So it's been a year we've been doing this new process. We were having trouble on the product side, either building like really big, cool features or like quick wins. And so it was really tough. Like we'd spend, we'd want to do a new feature and then we'd get so focused doing that feature that we weren't making fast changes. And, or we'd do them, but we'd wait to like release everything at once. And then like the big features, you maybe would need another week of testing or something because they're big. And it was delaying our product development cycle. And so we ended up like splitting our dev team. People rotate between the teams. So it's not like, oh, there's one developer that's always on this team, one that's that. But we kind of broke the way we prioritize things into two different development teams where we have our big features and then we have our like quick wins. And so that means the big features can have way longer cycles. And there's, like I say, there's no pressure. Like there's still some pressure, but if you need another week to test, like great, like do it right. This is big, it's important. And then with the other team, it's all quick wins and they're releasing every single day. And so that way, like there's some integrations we can do really quickly, lots of like bug fixes, customer feedback, just like changing wording so things make more sense. Like the cycle on that is now crazy. And people will talk about our speed of execution all the time. Like I'll see customers post on LinkedIn how they provided some feedback and we're able to act really quickly on it. And so I really love this way of doing it because we're still like crushing it on the big features. It's slower, but it's good. And then with the quick features, we're just able to execute so quickly, it blows away our customers. And so that was it was frustrating a year ago before we made this change where like, I don't feel like we're moving fast enough. And now I just feel like we're moving super fast. And that's awesome. I don't know if that's common. I've never like talked to see if other companies do that. So, but I don't think it is, to be honest. And then, on the biggest win side, I feel like stuff is just so incremental. There's like it's tough. It's like, you get the feature, but then you get the customer, so that's bigger. And then they get, there are people on board, so that's bigger. Like I can't think of one thing that's like the biggest. It's just, it feels like every day we get like 1% better. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, who were we a year ago? Like so much has happened. And I'm really proud of how far we've come.
That's great. That's great. I honestly just love the passion of just the energy that you have when you're talking about this. It's really great to see when founders are so into what they're doing, because we also had a conversation here very recently with a founder that has been doing this amazing product for 10 years, and they decided to move away eventually just because everything became kind of like been there, done that. And it's kind of the worst feeling to have, like losing that passion. So, just talking to you and again, just kind of comparing to what I see on LinkedIn. And again, like kind of the vibe that you're giving out there, it really matches. So it's, Well,
I was actually thinking about that as I go to an office that's just me because our team's remote. But as I was walking to work today, I was thinking about how cool it is that what we're doing changes all the time, because as the company grows, like my role and also the role of the earlier people on the team changes so much. And that stops things from feeling like tired, like you've done it before. Because even now, like we're kind of at the point where it's like, okay, we did this thing that worked. If I would just do more of it, I might burn out. But like everything's changing anyway because we're growing. We're going to hire a couple more people. That's going to shift different roles around. And I think because like so much is changing all the time and like the day-to-day changes, it just keeps things fresh. And it also like allows people to work on different things that at least right now, like I think people on our team really enjoy. Maybe at some point too much change is a bad thing, but I think it just helps make sure that you're not like, oh, I've done a lot of like this and I'm getting burnt out, because you're like, well, if you do it for a month and it works, you're going to be doing something else the next month. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, that could qualify as a hack almost, but I'm still going to ask you for a hack. And it can be anything, right? It can be just something to remind people of just some conventional wisdom, or, something that was really interesting and original and you keep coming back to it.
I'm gonna quote my co-founder in this one. So he always talks about, what's the word he uses? Oh, okay. It's byproducts. So like his favorite thing is byproducts. Like what can you do that's gonna get you byproducts? And so it's like okay, our customers asked for an integration with a company. So we have to build it because they need it to be successful. But it's like, all right, cool. What are the byproducts there? Well, we can tell the company we're building integration with them. Now we can do some partner marketing with them, lead some workshops, email their customers. We built it for our customers, but now there's a byproduct there that we can get their customers. And we can put a video up on YouTube talking about it, drive some search traffic. And it's like the and. So we just try to think in byproducts all the time. Like if you're going to do one thing, it's often better to, you still want to get the first part out very quickly, but then take a couple more days and be like, all right, what else can we do with this? And then, build a process around it. But we joke all the time about like, oh, what are the byproducts? Like, what else can we do? Oh, that's, a byproduct in there. So I think about that is if you're already going to do 80% of the work for something, like you may as well reap in all the benefits.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's a great hack. That definitely qualifies like one. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing. And it's a great story. I honestly love talking to you about this. Like I said, the energy is infectious, and I feel like I wouldn't try. Like I've honestly never tried Sendspark, but just having you here talk about it and just seeing how how you're using it again on LinkedIn to just promote the product, I feel like there could be a way for even me to utilize this, even though maybe I'm not your ICP. But yeah, happy to do it again sometime. See where you're at maybe next year. But thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much, and thanks for staying up late for the interview too. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, anytime, and take care.